Hello, everyone, and welcome, whether you're watching this webinar live online or you're watching its recording. My name is Adolfo Sanchez Cuadrado. I am a lecturer of linguistics at the University of Granada, Spain, and I will be hosting today. Before introducing today's webinar and speaker, let me give you a bit of context. The Arcus Alliance is a multilateral alliance of 9 institutions in the tertiary level, which share academic, scientific, and cultural objectives, a common vision of the role of higher education and research, and mutual fields of interests. Today's webinar is part of the guest lecture series, 9 months, 9 universities, offered in the framework of the Plurilingual and Intercultural Hub of the Alliance. This hub is one of the work groups of the Alliance, and it aims to promote plurilingualism within the 9 institutions and to capitalize on students, researchers, and staff's competence in different languages, as well as to foster their intercultural competence, one of the soft skills much needed for today's society. These lectures focus on specific topics related to language and culture and target mainly graduate and postgraduate students, as well as early stage researchers and academic staff. The lectures are intended to generate awareness and appreciation for the topic of multilingualism, as well as an understanding of the many areas of our lives that are related to and influenced by language. Well, so let me now introduce today's speaker, Professor Olha Petrenko-Tseunova. Hello, Olha.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I will first introduce you and then the webinar. Then I will give you the floor, the screen in this case, okay? So Olha Petrenko-Tseunova is a senior lecturer in the Department of General and Slavic Linguistics at the National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy. She holds a PhD in literary studies. She also expanded her academic expertise through the dual master's program Heritage Interpretation, History, Culture, Literature, jointly delivered by the Ukrainian Catholic University and the University of Nottingham. Her anthology, Ukrainian Authors on the Writing Process from the Middle Ages to Modernism, and the essay collection, The Novel Tradition, Cross-Cutting Themes of Ukrainian Culture, both were published in 2025. She has been working in the published industry since 2017. Since 2021, she has been teaching practice-based courses at both the bachelor's and master's levels. Her bachelor's level courses complement the translation and editing certificate program, while her master's course focuses on collaboration with publishers, development of creative and professional skills, and students' transition to employment in the publishing field. Well, oh, an impressive CV you have already.
Thank you.
Olha is about to deliver the following webinar entitled Creative Assignments in Higher Education, Engaging Students Through Practice-Based Learning. Just from the title, we can see that it will be a very interesting webinar. It will use, as the abstract says, editing courses as a case study to explore how creative pedagogy can be an effective approach to teaching applied, practice-based skills in higher education. Very much needed today. And the webinar will focus on the design and implementation of non-standard creative assignments aimed at developing professional and transferable skills. It addresses broader questions relevant to the teaching of applied humanities and other practice-based disciplines such as critical thinking, attention to detail, creativity, and professional flexibility. Also very much needed in today's society with the coming of artificial intelligence, I assume. So before giving the screen to Olha, I would like to remind you all that you can leave any comments or questions you may have in the comments box during the presentation. and I will pass them on to Olha at the end. And also you can leave those questions at the end of the presentation when we have our Q&A. So, well, Olha, first of all, thank you. I forgot to say that in the beginning. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us, especially in these rather difficult times you are experiencing right now in Ukraine. So thank you very much. And without further ado, I will pass the screen to you now.
Thank you very much. It is a great honor and pleasure for me to take part in this webinar. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to share my teaching experience and to represent the National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, one of the leading higher education institutions in Ukraine. And let me see. To start with, it is important to say, in addition to those information which you heard, that I do not have pedagogical education, only empirical knowledge, because I have been working in the publishing field, and during this time I have collaborated with a number of publishing houses and edited more than 50 books, I suppose. In 2021, my alma mater, Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, invited me to teach a practical course in editing, first at the undergraduate level and later also for master's students. I was expected to share professional experience. One more important thing for the introduction is the fact that most of my teaching has taken place online. Unfortunately, first because of the COVID pandemic and since 2022 due to the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation. Now let's have a closer look on educational process in Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, which is a relatively small university with a limited number of buildings. This means that student groups can be quite large, sometimes up to 30 students on my courses. For practical based classes, this is a great challenge and needs to be taken into account when designing assignments. The university offers a system of elective courses that are open to students from different disciplines, ranging from philosophy and history to IT and marketing. At the same time, there are specific degree programs at the undergraduate and master's levels that form the core audience for my editing courses. At the bachelor level, this include philology for Ukrainian language and literature and philology for Germanic languages and literatures, including translation. At the master's level, the main programs are languages, English and Ukrainian, and communication, as well as philology, theory and history of literature, and comparative studies. In addition, the Academy offers a certificate program in translation and editing. This is a form of additional education that students can include in their CVs when applying for jobs. Unlike some other Ukrainian universities, such as Lviv Polytechnic or Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, which have specialized degree programs in publishing and editing, at Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, editing courses primarily provide the practical component of education. These courses are not lectures or traditional seminars, but fully practice-oriented classes. At the moment, I teach 3 editing courses, each with a slightly different focus. The first one is editing fiction. This course looks at the full publishing process from a raw manuscript to a finished book and its promotion. We talk about the editor's role at each stage, working with the author, shaping the text, preparing it for publication, and thinking about how the book will meet its readers. An important part of the course are guest speakers from different publishing houses of Ukraine who join us and share how this process actually works in real publishing context. The second course is called Editing Scientific Texts. It is also for undergraduate students. Here we work mostly with the students' own academic writing. For many of them, these are their first serious research texts, so the course helps them learn how to write a course paper or a bachelor's thesis at an appropriate academic level. We also focus on critical reading of academic texts, academic integrity, citation practices, and the editorial policies of scholarly journals. The aim is to make academic writing transparent and manageable, not intimidating for students. The third course is editorial workshop for master's students. This is a fully practice-based course with no lectures at all. Students work on a wide range of tasks that simulate real editorial situations for them. For example, 2 weeks ago, we discussed how editors can responsibly work with AI tools. And last week, we analyzed concrete cases of how to speak to a broad audience about issues of identity and collective memory without slipping into simplification and propaganda. The course is about flexibility and professional responsibility in this field. To give you some context about my students, I work with both undergraduate and graduate groups. At the undergraduate level, from second to fourth years of studying, we have a diverse mix of students. Some are still focusing purely on their studies, and others already have their first jobs in the industry. Our master students are usually more experienced. A number of them already work professionally and often come to us from different academic backgrounds through the cross-disciplinary entry system. Demographically, students on philology are predominantly female. This has been a long-term trend in the philology department even well before 2022. To give you a personal example, when I was a bachelor student from 2012 to 2016, there were only 4 male people in my group of 48. To provide a representative portrait of philology alumnus from the Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, I would like to refer shortly to the examples of my fellow group mates. In general, Kyiv-Mohyla Academy students have always been known for their active civic engagement, participating in 24 Orange Revolution and 2012 hunger strike in defense of the Ukrainian language in Kyiv. When the Revolution of Dignity began, we were only in our second year of university studies. A number of my group mates, both male and female, actively joined the Maidan self-defense and volunteering efforts. Even though a degree of philology doesn't typically provide you with those kinds of skills. Out of those 4 men from my group, one, Mykola Rachok, became a journalist and later joined the army. Unfortunately, he was killed in the summer of 2022 while repelling a Russian offensive in the Pokrovsk direction. Currently, as far as I know, 4 of my former group mates, 2 men and 2 women, are serving in the armed forces of Ukraine. All of them were philologists, and all of them are remarkable people. Now, for instance, Yarina Chernoguz, a poet and Shevchenko Prize laureate, is in the army since 2019, and she was a marine, combat medic, and a drone operator now. Yulia Mykytenko, also my group mate from Kyiv-Mohyla philology group, is now a commander of a platoon in the reconnaissance company of the armed forces of Ukraine. Among my other former group mates are the writer and translator Ostap Ukrainets and videographer Alexander Partyan. Both have joined the defense forces of Ukraine, putting their philological background aside to protect the country. Others have chosen civilian paths to advocate the Ukraine's interests. For instance, Olesya Bida is an investigative journalist and filmmaker. Her work includes powerful documentaries on the deportation of Ukrainian children, war crimes against minors, and cases of conflict-related sexual violence committed by the Russian military. You might wonder why I am sharing these personal stories in a lecture about philology and creative pedagogy. The reason is the following. At the Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, students can have not only knowledge, but a system of values. Our traditions, our professors, and the student community itself have always fostered a deep sense of civic agency. In Ukraine, and specifically in our academy, philology has never been just about grammar or literature. It was always been at the heart of our struggle for identity. So when I design creative assignments today, I am not just teaching students how to edit a text. I am also teaching them how to take responsibility for meaning. The civic stance of my former group mates who are now defending our country is the ultimate result of this environment. By encouraging creativity and independent thinking and decision-making in the classroom, we prepare our students to be leaders and decision-makers responsible for our country. This connection between educational freedom and civic responsibility is what makes our pedagogical approach resilient even in the darkest times. I mention this because it defines the context in which we teach today. Now let me describe the reality of educational environment in Ukraine. It has been a long journey of adaptation. As I said, I started with distance learning in 2021 due to the COVID pandemic. Then in winter and spring of 2022, the semester was suspended before resuming, again entirely online. Starting from 2023, the academy began a gradual return to campus. The administration prioritized the first-year students so they could meet each other and experience university life. Each following year, they added another level, second-year students in 2024, then third year in 2025. To give you a personal experience, between 2021 and 2026, I had only one single semester of in-person teaching. in the autumn of 2025. Today, I am back online, unfortunately. The security situation is part of the reason, but we also face severe infrastructure challenges like lack of heating and electricity in our buildings. Our daily routine is defined by constant disruptions. Air raid sirens force both students and teachers to move to shelters. Moreover, because our students are scattered across different regions, many face blackouts and the threat of shelling. This is a challenging context in which we try to maintain a creative and engaging learning process. Now, let's talk about the pedagogical approach itself. Traditionally, philology in Ukraine is seen a very theoretical field. It focuses a lot on the history of literature and language, on close reading and on academic research, but much less on how these skills can be used outside the academia. When I started teaching these courses, it became clear that both the university and the students wanted something different. There was a strong demand for practical skills. Students were asking very basic but important questions. How does editing actually work? What does an editor do in a publishing house? How do texts move from a manuscript to a finished book? So I decided to focus on practice-based learning. My main goal was to bridge the gap between academic knowledge and real professional practice in publishing and media. So instead of only discussing texts in theory, we started to work with real materials like manuscripts, drafts, style guides, and editorial tasks. Students edited texts, discussed editorial decisions, and simulated real workflows. In other words, we moved from just talking about texts to actually working with them. I wanted students to experience the kinds of problems editors face every day and to start thinking not only as scholars but also as practitioners. To explain the theoretical framework of my courses, I first need to clarify what I mean by creative assignments in higher education. Very often, creativity in the classroom is misunderstood. It is seen as something light, optional, or even entertaining, a way to make learning more pleasant, maybe similar to how creative tasks function in primary or secondary school. In my courses, creativity serves a very different purpose. These assignments are not designed to entertain students, but to place them in the situation that closely resemble real professional context. They require concentration, analytical thinking, responsibility for decisions, and the ability to work with uncertainty, all of which demand a high level of cognitive effort. This approach works in the field where practice-based learning intersects with the applied humanities. In editing, we do not treat texts as abstract objects of analysis. Instead, we treat them as tools of communication that always exist in concrete social, cultural, and professional situations. Students are asked to use theoretical knowledge from former courses to solve practical problems, such as unclear authorial intention, conflicting stylistic norms, ethical dilemmas, or the expectations of different audiences. Though creative assignments, students develop two interconnected sets of skills. First, there are professional skills specific to editing. One of the most important among them is decision-making. Editors constantly choose between several possible solutions, linguistic, stylistic, or structural, and must be able to justify these choices clearly and responsibly. Second, students develop transferable skills that go beyond editing as a profession. This include critical thinking, adaptability, and precise communication. Such skills are essential not only in publishing, but in any field where people work with information, texts, and meanings. In this sense, the courses prepare students not just for a specific job, but for a wide range of professional environments. Now, let's look at our case study, why editing courses are a good example of practice-based learning from my point of view. Editing is not just about language, it is rather about working with text as a living object. In these courses, students must take full responsibility for their decisions. Every comma they move or every sentence they rewrite must have a reason. This teaches them that editing is a strategic act, not just a technical one. I implement this approach at two levels. With bachelor students, we focus on building professional confidence and foundational skills, while with master's students often have more experience, so we can tackle more complex interdisciplinary tasks. Finally, we must acknowledge the limitations of traditional assignments. For a long time, editing was taught simply as fixing mistakes or spotting errors, but in the professional world, that is probably less than a half of the job. Fixing errors does not equal professional practice. To truly prepare students, I need assignments that simulate real-world editing challenges where there isn't always one correct answer. Here we come to the examples of assignments. The first one comes from the course Editing Scientific Texts. Students are asked to re-edit a dictionary entry from the most authoritative academic dictionary in Ukraine, the 11-volume Dictionary of the Ukrainian Language, it is called. The challenge is that this dictionary was compiled and published at 1970s and early 1980s in the late Soviet period. Although it is still widely used in Ukraine, many entries reflect the logic of Soviet censorship. Very often, meanings were adjusted to fit ideological norms. Russian-based forms were prioritized, and usage of examples were chosen to legitimize the Soviet worldview. So what do students actually do in this task? They work with one concrete dictionary entry and treat it as an editorial problem. First, they analyze the structure of the entry, definitions, hierarchy of meanings, stylistic labels, and examples. Then they identify which meanings are no longer relevant, which formulations are ideologically marked, or which examples serve propaganda rather than real language use. After that, students make editorial decisions. They decide whether a definition should be kept, removed, reformulated, or expanded. They look for authentic Ukrainian synonyms that were marginalized or excluded for political reasons. They also select new examples from classical or contemporary Ukrainian literature that reflect real usage and are free from ideological bias. From an editorial perspective, this task develops several core skills. Students practice analytical reading and learn to see hidden assumptions in seemingly neutral reference texts. They develop decision-making skills because every change must be justified linguistically and historically. They also learn to work with sources, available authority, and balance respect for academic tradition with the need for revision. Most importantly, this assignment trains students to understand editing as an ethical and cultural responsibility. They see that a dictionary is not a fixed truth, but a historical document shaped by power, ideology, and context of time. In this way, the task helps them develop linguistic decolonization skills, the ability to distinguish between neutral language development and language shaped by political pressure, which is an essential competence for editors working in post-Soviet and post-imperial contexts. In addition to ideologically charged words such as party, bourgeoisie, or liberalism, which are interpreted in the dictionary in the spirit of Soviet propaganda, there are also examples of words whose meanings have expanded in recent years. As an example, students choose the words that have taken on new, often painful meanings because of the current war. An example you see on the slide is the word grad, which means hail in Ukrainian. If you look at the 1970s dictionary, the definition is strictly meteorological. Atmospherical precipitation in the form of ice. It's just about the weather. However, for modern Ukrainians, it is no longer just about the weather. Today, it is primarily known as a Russian multiple launch rocket system used to shell frontline territories and residential areas. When students edit this entry, they face a real professional challenge: how to balance this traditional meaning with new reality. They have to decide how to categorize this new meaning. Is it a military term or a common noun? What usage explains should be used to reflect today's truth? This task shows that editing is a way of documenting history as it happens. This exercise also highlights a major professional challenge: editing in a so-called gray zone. The official Ukrainian orthography and grammar rules often can't keep up with the speed of journalistic and media texts since 2022. And we do not have the decision, we are making it in the process. How do we write these new word terms when there are no official rules yet? For example, should we put words with new meanings in quotation marks or treat them as common nouns? How should we handle international terms like Bayraktar or Tomahawk? Should we transliterate them into the Ukrainian Cyrillic alphabet or keep them in the original Latin script? In my classes, I don't give students ready-made answers because quite often they don't simply exist yet. Instead, I ask them to act as style guide creators. They must research how different media outlets and other platforms are handling these words, weigh the pros and cons, and make a justified decision. This develops professional flexibility and the ability to navigate uncertainty, a skill every modern editor needs now. My second example of a creative assignment is writing fictional CVs for historical figures. For a long time in Ukraine, editing was not recognized as a separate profession. Many well-known poets, scholars, and even politicians such as Mikhailo Dragomanov or Simon Petliura were in fact deeply involved in editing, publishing, and shaping texts, even if they were not called editors in a modern sense. In this task, I ask students to look at these historical figures through a contemporary professional lens and treat them as potential colleagues rather than untouchable cultural icons. First of all, the assignment trains students to extract professional competitions from a biography. They have to analyze concrete practices. What editorial principles did this person follow? How did they work with authors' styles? What kind of decisions did they make as editors or publishers? They also identify hard skills, for example, deep knowledge of literary traditions, or experience working across genres and formats. This approach helps students move towards understanding professional behavior. Historical figures start looking like working professionals with strengths, limitations, preferences, and so on. For example, students discover Maxim Rylsky, famous poet, as a highly sensitive stylistic editor who knew how to improve a text without humiliating the author. Or Mykola Lukács as a translator and editor who actively searched for rare and forgotten words in order to expand the expressive potential of the language. From a pedagogical point of view, this assignment also develops gender awareness and professional self-presentation. Writing a CV requires clarity, structure, prioritizing, and the ability to translate complex experience into readable and convincing language, all of which are essential editorial skills. An important outcome of this task was professional validation. The strongest student CVs were curated and published at a collective long read by Tiktor, a Ukrainian media outlet focused on books and publishing. For students, this means having a real publication and a portfolio item, but also seeing that their academic work can exist outside of the classroom and be meaningful to a wider professional audience. The third and final example is the creation of promotional teasers for edited texts. This assignment is designed to help students understand how the same text, functions differently depending on the communicative context. In traditional editing courses, students often assume that their responsibility ends once the text is technically correct, clean, and free of errors. However, in professional practice, editing does not stop at correctness. An editor also needs to think about what happens to the text after publication, how it will reach its readers, and how it will be framed in different media environments. In this task, students take a short story they have already edited by themselves and write a short promotional teaser for a specific platform. The text itself stays the same, but the mode of address, tone of voice, and structure may change. The main goal of this assignment is to clearly identify the target audience and the communicative purpose. In terms of skills, this assignment develops professional flexibility and editorial judgment. It forces students to step away from the micro level of grammar and stylistics and more towards a macro level with a view of communication. They learn to see the text not only as a linguistic object, but as a product that exists in a competitive attention economy and needs to find its reader. Ultimately, this task helps students understand that contemporary editors often work at the intersection of editing, communications, and promotion. It encourages them to think like communication strategists who can adopt content responsibility without destroying meanings, a crucial skill in today's crowded and fast-moving digital world. I believe it is also important to talk about the experiments that did not work in my practice. As educators, we have to be honest that the rapid rise of generative AI, which was discussed on the previous webinar, has made some traditional assignments obsolete. For instance, I tried to give students a task to paraphrase a text in a different style. While this was a good exercise 5 years ago, today it is something that any AI tool can do in seconds. When a task can be easily delegated to a machine, it loses its value as a learning tool because it no longer requires the student to engage deeply with the material. This forced me to move toward AI-resistant assignments. I stopped focusing on tasks that are purely about the form of the language. Instead, I shifted to tasks that require human judgment, localized context, and ethical responsibility. For instance, AI might be able to rewrite a sentence, but it cannot yet navigate the complex gray zones of Ukrainian wartime terminology or understand the deep historical nuances of a Soviet-era dictionary, as a human editor can. By failing at some tasks, I learned how to create more complex and meaningful ones. To conclude, I would like to summarize the effectiveness of this approach. Why do creative, practice-based assignments work so well, especially now? First, they foster critical thinking. By questioning dictionaries and analyzing historical contexts, students learn that language is never neutral. They become active analysts rather than passive receivers of information. Second, these tasks demand extreme attention to detail. When students have to justify why a certain word needs a new definition, they look at text with a level of precision that a standard test simply cannot inspire. Third, and perhaps most importantly, is the awareness of one's own decisions. My students stop asking, is this correct? And start asking, why is this better? They take ownership of their work, which is the hallmark of a true professional. Finally, in the context of the war and the constant stress we face in Ukraine, this approach significantly boosts motivation and engagement. When assignments are connected to modern challenges, students feel that their education is relevant. It gives them a sense of agency and purpose, proving that even in a crisis, learning can be a powerful act of resilience. To wrap up, I want to emphasize that our reality in Ukraine, marked by war, constant air raids, and blackouts, requires a specific kind of asynchronous flexibility. Creative assignments allow students to work whenever they have electricity or internet, not just during the scheduled class time. In the multitasking reality of modern publishing industry, this is a vital skill. But these principles go far beyond editing courses. They can be successfully applied to almost any of the applied humanities, social science, or language related disciplines. The core idea is simple: replace mechanical tasks with those that require strategic thinking. Of course, there are risks and limitations. The first is grading. How do you objectively grade a fictional CV? It requires clear rubrics and more effort from the teacher. The second is workload, because designing this kind of tasks is much more time consuming than preparing a standard lecture. The last but not the least are student expectations, as far as some students may initially feel uncomfortable with open-ended tasks and might prefer simple, predictable assignments. However, despite these challenges, the result is a student who is not just educated, but professional, flexible, and ready for the real world. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention. I am ready to answer the questions.
Well, okay, Oha, thank you very much for this enlightening webinar. Not only have you given us a glimpse of your of the editing industry and your pedagogy and your courses, but you have also enlightened us with how to deal with difficult situations that may hinder education, and that's enlightening, as I said. So thank you very much for all the expertise and all the ideas that you have given us. Okay, so let's wait for any comments and questions to come through the chat. In the meantime, let me ask you first, while we wait. I was very much intrigued by one of the tasks that you mentioned, the one about the dictionary, the updating of the dictionary. It is something that goes on in every society, because we all have these old entries in today's dictionaries, the ones we use currently. It is something that we also have here in Spain, because the official dictionary of the Spanish language sometimes is renewed and updated with to get rid of old definitions and which are not politically correct, etc. And every time that the Royal Academy of the Language does that, there's some reaction against that change here in Spain. There are some people, some sectors who think that shouldn't be done. That sometimes they think that the academy is overstepping. So I wanted to ask you if you have found any kind of reaction against that task among your students, meaning that students that feel that task, they feel it's real and they feel engaged to the task itself, but more from the political perspective, that they are reluctant to the changes that you propose them to do with the entries.
Well, thank you for this question and for this Spanish context. It is extremely interesting to compare, in fact. Speaking about students, I heard only approval from them. They are young people who are in the avant-garde of these changes, and they propose such things even I didn't think about before. Mm-hmm. And if we speak about the society in general, probably, yes, such contradictions exist. For instance, about feminist words about women in professions, many people in Ukraine are for this, and a large group is against. And it is a discussion still how to call those professions for women, because according to new rules since 2019, we should use these words in both forms, male and female, but not everybody still does it. It is probably the main contradiction. It is partly political, partly social, I think. And other words, it is easier to change because this communist ideology is far away, so it's easier to decide this.
Okay. Well, good. Glad to hear that your students are all in favor of those changes because they will be the future society. So it's good to hear that. Okay. You were talking about creative assignments all the time. How do students actually respond to them? Because they're very demanding, as you said, and they ask them to be ready for uncertainty and to work with other students, colleagues, to be always judging and critically thinking. So they're very demanding. So how do they react to these kind of assignments?
If I had to name the main form of feedback, it would be students' decision to recommend my courses. Because all three of my courses are electives, which means that they only run if enough students sign up. And every year registration opens, students enroll almost immediately. It is a great honor for me, in fact, that they advise these courses to each other and often come back for another one in masters after bachelor's, for instance. The most popular course is editing fiction. I don't know why, but the courses on editing academic texts and a workshop for masters also are full. For me, that's a very clear signal that the format and the content actually meet students' needs. At the beginning of each course, I always ask students about their previous experience with editing texts and about their expectations about the course. And at the end, I ask for detailed feedback, which assignments were the most useful for them and which one felt maybe unnecessary, which topics deserve more time, and so on. And I really use this feedback, so no semester ever looks exactly the same with the previous one. The courses keep changing from year to year. I also see that students enjoy these creative assignments, although they are challenging, as you said, and time-consuming, and they require focus and decision-making and so on in such a hot atmosphere as we live. But students like presenting their work to the audience, not just submitting it to a lecturer. And one thing I find especially important is the atmosphere in the group. When someone presents a book trailer or an editorial concept, other students applaud, comment, and support each other. This is significant because many groups are mixed. Students don't know each other at the beginning if they are from second to the fourth years of studying, for instance, or from different departments. And that is why we spend time getting acquainted and building trust at the beginning. For me, this is very essential in the studying process. Without a safe and friendly environment, students would be afraid to present their work or speak openly in front of peers who might seem critical or distant to each other. And one more key point is that I deliberately remove the idea of competition. There is no contest of creativity in my classes. I explain that in real publishing practice, editors usually give advice each other. And so I encourage students to see each other not as competitors, but as a future colleagues, and to be constructive and supportive to each other.
Good. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have new students every course, that's the best feedback that they really enjoy the courses, and they make you know they learn from it. So yeah, that's the best feedback. And you mentioned that you work with real life workflows, deadlines, pressure, and there's this feeling that today's young generations are not that capable of dealing with frustration and uncertainty and that kind of real life workflow, etc. Implies frustration because you don't get things well done in the beginning, and you have to it's a iterative process all the time. So how do you feel your students are coping with that level of frustration they may have when they have to work on the same project over and over, and they receive feedback which is not that good because those tasks are more demanding, as we were saying, instead of more closed and more controlled tasks. So are they coping well with this kind of negative affective emotions and feelings?
Well, of course, it's challenging for them, and I see even from after the night with air alarms and some challenges like blackouts, it is very naive to think that they will be so ready to do everything. But I try different strategies, higher and more small task for them. For 1 week, I give home assignment and we speak about it in the class, and the other week I don't give them assignment and I prepare something to give them some time to rest at home and to do some tasks from other courses. So this combination helps.
Okay.
And I try to hear them, to hear their feedback. If I see that something is not okay, I change it in the process, of course.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, we can ask a lot of them, but we cannot be too demanding. Otherwise, they get too frustrated. And a very good point I think you made was this shift from form focused assignments towards judgment focused assignments with all the generative AI that already does many things for us. So it is up to us it is more for us to judge the product, not to have the product itself. But sometimes people say that to be able to judge something, which is a higher order skill, you cannot lose the lower or low order skills too, because you have to learn things, you have to learn the concepts, you have to learn how things work, and then once you have that knowledge, that background, you are able to judge, assess, etc. So do you think that AI tools will hinder that process? Because students tend to think that, okay, now I don't need to learn things. I can have all the information, a click away. Everything is there on the, on internet, everything. So that they tend to think that they don't need to learn. They just can jump into, applying knowledge and judging and assessing and etc. What do you think about that? Do you think that AI may hinder that process of learning and getting the background necessary for that kind of higher order skills?
Well, I included a class about AI in every course from different perspective, because we can't ignore it anymore. I think the decision to change tasks which can be delegated to AI is only one component, of course. And on one of the classes, we communicated about the social media posts generated by AI. I showed those which I knew that were generated and published to students, and they commented that it is not okay. They are not satisfied with the quality of these texts. And I asked them, would they do so when they become professionals? They said, of course, no, it's something stupid to publish such texts, and it is a shame for the organization. And in such way, I show them why their own text generated by AI, which they show as their personal, it is obvious. It is obvious that it is not their own. One more thing, we try to edit those texts which were generated by AI. So I understand they would use it, but they can use it critically. They can see what to correct there, what to change to make it better. So we work in such way also as editors with those texts.
Okay. Yes, as you say, I mean, we cannot ignore that. It's here already, and it's gonna be more present even in the future. So we have to train our students how to be critical about it. And again, as you said, to focus more on judging than on having the product itself. Well, okay. So it's 4 past 12. So I think we could come to an end. If you think So, well, Oha, as I said, thank you very much for this very interesting webinar. We have learned many things, as I said, from your courses, your pedagogy, but also from the context you are experiencing. I truly hope that things get better soon, hopefully. And well, thank you once again for sharing your knowledge and giving us so much food for thought.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me just say goodbye to everyone watching live or watching the recording, and let me invite the audience to join us in our next webinar next month, and to keep on enjoying the repository of all the recordings of the webinars. So, well, thank you very much, and bye, everyone.
Goodbye.